Good?
Yep.
All right, everyone, it's 2:04. We'll go ahead and start the workshop. And in attendance, we have Bob,
Why don't you
myself,
take your microphone and push it down a
Ed,
little bit?
and Carol. In absence, we have Doug. We'll go ahead and we'll start with the presentation. Is it going to be Stephanie or Paul that's going to start? Paul? All right.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. Paul Flores, for the record, Public Works Director. I am also joined by Stephanie McLean. She's our Stormwater Specialist. Between the both of us, we'll provide you with an overview of this today's presentation. So today, we're going to be discussing the long-awaited trunkline pond aeration, in particular, the trunkline aeration project. And although there's a lot of material in the presentation, we'll try to make it as brief as possible so that we get to the root or to the policy decisions and the guidance that we need from the board.
Yep, hang on, I'm just trying to get it sized. All right.
So today's goal that we're trying to achieve is determine whether the Board of Supervisors wishes to proceed with expanding the district's aeration program to include the 10 trunkline ponds. We have two options as far as implementation. One is to do all 10 at the same time, one project. The second option is to phase those over a 3-year period, doing a third each year. And then finally, it's just to try to get some board direction if there's anything else you would like for us to consider and to evaluate as part of this project.
Hi, Flavia. Oh, I'm Doug.
Let the record show that Doug Bank has arrived.
Next slide. So we wanted to start off with just a brief overview of our stormwater programs. There's 8 major ones. I won't go through all of them. I think everyone here is pretty familiar. But today, the focus is going to be on aeration and the trunkline project. So that being said, Stephanie will kind of give a walkthrough of aeration, the purpose and the science behind it, and why we want to proceed with these 10 ponds. So I'll hand this over to Stephanie.
Yeah, so as Paul said, as you know, the stormwater program has many things that we deal with. So we do vegetation on the ponds, we do lake bank restoration, fish stocking. So as you're going through this presentation, just keep in mind that aeration is important. It has a lot of benefits, but really it's a multi-step thing. We have a lot of components that go along with the stormwater department. So.
Maybe. If the mouse lets me.
So why aeration? The benefits of aeration, the biggest thing is it's a long-term program that's going to help that's okay. That's all right. That's going to help the water quality of our ponds. The biggest way it does this is it brings oxygen from the surface to the bottom of our pond and circulates our ponds. So anything at the bottom like phosphorus and nitrogen that are just sitting there, you're not going to get those stratified layers that you see in a pond. It's going to bring it together in a big circular motion. So as a result, you're going to have mosquito control, it improves fish habitat, you're going to have less odor, things like that. It's just helpful for the pond. And then here's a diagram to show that, but the first one is pond without aeration. So at the bottom, it's just sitting there in those layers. That's where the nitrogen, phosphorus sits. And then as you get to the surface, that's where you're going to get the most contact with the oxygen. Whereas when you put aeration at the bottom, there's a little disc that they put at the bottom, and that's where that air is pumped and it circulates through the pond. Good for your plant life and your fish life and anything like that. So where we stand at Gateway right now, we have a lot of historical data, which is really helpful for this project. We measure water quality every single month. So this is an overview of the past 5 years. And averages that we've seen. So I break it up into dissolved oxygen and then our TSI. So dissolved oxygen is the biggest thing we're benefiting from this aeration. And from the data there, you're going to see it averages about 4 to 5 is where that lands. And that is in standard with our NPDES acceptable ranges. The acceptable range is between a 4 and a 15. So we have been in that range the past 5 years straight. Anything that dips below, it hasn't ever dipped below or above for 3 months in a row consecutively, and these are averages throughout the year.
Are these monthly grab samples?
Yes.
Okay.
And the
So if I'm looking at water quality basin 1 dissolved oxygen 5.79 is 12 numbers added divided by 12. Okay. That can have a big variation then.
Because it will vary based on the seasons, and you're going to get more algae in some seasons, and others it's doing really well. So the average as a total, those are just normal.
When a golf course fertilizes a couple lakes, you see it.
Yes, and that's kind of what we
And
talked
that's-
about.
yeah, that's normal. You see progressions throughout
Seasonal.
the year, yeah. And then on the right, you have your TSI, which we've been measuring for the same amount of time. And from past 5 years, it's been in compliance with our pond standards, which you have a threshold at 70, and it usually is around a 40 to a 50.
Other question, are these taken at the weir?
Yes. So all of these
All
are
of these are
taken
at the weir.
At the weir. Weir 1 through 5. You can move on to that.
But there's some pelican data that's not from the weir. You ignore that?
I don't have that data. I know that your pond subcommittee takes those data samples from each of your ponds,
Yeah.
but eventually they all flow
we
into the
send it to Lee
flowway.
County, and it's in the master pond watch data. But it's not confined to weirs within Pelican, because we were very concerned about the dump. So we monitored that every month for 15 years.
So that's not in, that's not a part of this. This is just only
Okay.
the weirs. Yeah. But this is a little basic overview, a little more depth there, but year-to-year fluctuations are present, but dissolved oxygen is usually 4 to 6, and then TSI is 46 to 63. So we're in good standing, but as part of this project, dissolved oxygen, when you have aeration, usually brings it above a 6%. So if you do add aeration, it is going to boost these numbers a little better. So if you're interested in bringing that into the flowways, then we can do that as part of this project.
How do you calculate the amount of aeration needed per pond?
So we talked with our vendors about that, of how do you calculate how do you put all the aeration in. First, you find where you can set up your power, and based on that, they're going to run your lines out and calculate based on surface acres how many diffusers are going to be needed in that pond, and then they do all the math. Basically, the company itself, either Aquamaster, Aqua, whoever.
So I think it's not necessarily that what you're asking. The engineers believe that we needed to turn the pond 24 hours. So the math that's being done by the vendor is with the goal of having a 24-hour turnaround.
How many aerators does
So-
it take to turn the
So
pond
it's
over?
not, it's the so the concept is backwards. We as a board told the vendor that we would like to have a 24-hour turnaround. They make the calculations based on that, and
Okay.
that need, the 24 hours came from the engineers, what they want.
And the volume.
Yeah.
To get a full turnover.
The other
Yeah.
consideration,
That's what.
yeah, the other consideration that we looked at Pelican is we wanted them no further apart than 100 feet.
And so to turn a pond over, you either need multiple
Aerators.
aerators,
Diffusers, yeah. at the bottom.
Diffusers.
Yeah.
and is power, maybe power's not the right word. So it doesn't matter how,
You cannot increase the power in each
can't increase
diffuser.
the-
You
okay.
have to increase heads.
okay, all right, that's what I
okay?
was asking.
So yeah, so one head will
it's not like
never
a-
24 hours unless the pond is this size of the room.
Okay, all right.
And it's a minimum of 1 aerator per pond. You may be up to 2 or 3 turnovers. You don't have to be that high, but that may be the result of it.
Thank you, sorry, didn't mean to.
That's right. You can go to the next slide. So to visualize this for you guys a little better, we have some maps here to show what we're adding and what we already have. So this one is just a complete overview of our lakes and gateway. And then you can move to the next slide, and that's going to show all the ponds that already have aeration and then all the ones that do not. So currently the green ones are the ones with aeration. You have all of Pelicans done, Stony Brook, Hampton Park, and Daniels Preserve, and there's a few in Gateway Greens as well.
Does the board, does it matter? Would it be beneficial if we dotted the volume, like how many aerators are in these
We
green
got that
ponds?
data.
Yeah, it is
Have it.
on the GIS system of how many diffusers in the cabinets and all that.
Not only how many, but exactly where they are.
And then you can go to the next slide. It's going to show the proposed trunk line that's part of this project and what we're proposing here. So these are the 10 ponds that are part of the trunk line. Trunk line meaning all of the ponds surrounding it eventually do flow through the stormwater system to these ponds, and then eventually it'll go out through I-75 over to Weir 1 and eventually to the slough.
Can you go back one? Are these trunk lines, are they aerated today or no?
No.
Okay, all right, I see.
So
Perfect.
the yellow is what we're proposing,
Okay.
and then the blue is what, if you go to the next slide, that's what
So the majority of the flow coming from the east side of FPL that comes into either at the Stony Brook FPL or FL4, I think it is, or it comes in at 3, those are already aerated upstream.
everything that comes from Stony Brook comes over to Lake 130 and then.
So
you know,
Silver Lakes, Botanica,
Yes.
and what's the other one over there? C.
Country Club, no, the Country Club,
Begins with a C.
Colonial Country Club.
No,
Oh,
the
you're
other way.
talking about
Down
on
the
the tree
street from
line?
you.
Right?
Cypress,
right up the
Cypress
road
K,
there.
Cypress?
Silver Lakes.
Bristol Park.
That's what I see, people.
Pick one you like.
The ones between here and Magnolia where she's at.
Bristol Park
Or
and Cypress K.
Cypress K, thank
Well,
you.
Cypress K
None
is-
of those are aerated.
Yeah.
None of those besides Magnolia does have aeration because they had issues in the past and then we added aeration. No.
Okay, so
Okay, you can say it.
that's not why we had it, but I mean, I would like you to go more, but I kind of want to stop and just here. The big highlights for us, we decided to look at this 2 years ago, and I think that's when you started implementing, we thought there was going to be a really need. And then with time, we realized there's not much of a need for an aeration as many as you wanted it on Pelican, right? Because before they wanted to be proactive and get aeration to make sure that we not had any issues. Then I believe a year or so later, there was a revision of we don't need that many. It's not, we're not really seeing much of a difference because they never had issues. For me, for how I look at this is our guidelines are pretty stern and we're way below in everything. So we have never had a water issue. And when we do, it's something that, at the golf course or after the golf course, you're going to have an increase on the fertilization there. But that's just monthly, like, when the ban is gone.
Variation, yeah.
And then that's normal. Some of, like Magnolia Lake, and we are in compliance with this. So some of the ponds in Gateway do require, per the development order, aerations. So we already went to this 2 years ago and we realized that every single pond, because we had some that were not in compliance, so every single pond in Gateway that require aeration per the development order has a working aeration. So we have them, right? To me, the cost, and this is a split cost, right? So we pay 50 and Pelican pays 50,
No,
but it's a split cost of this.
we're only paying for the flowway. We're not going to pay for any of your ponds.
But you pay 50 of the flowway and we pay 50. Or is it,
I don't know, it's
but it's
50.
a shared cost.
Flowways are shared.
This is
Yeah.
minimal. The real money is going to be 01.
Yeah, so.
Ratted on the flow rate.
Yes.
So to me, because aeration is really solely looking at water quality and because historically, we have not had a water quality. We had isolated issues that we treated with an algae. We haven't had issues with odor. We had issues with odor when there was a fish kill in Gateway Greens, one, I think, or twice in the last 5 years. We had one at Silver Lake. So those are because something happened. So it's a reaction of something. But and being that I was really involved, and I think Ed too, so we do have historical knowledge. Like we were out there on the ground. This was not an issue. We thought it may be an issue. We thought like, okay, let's put this project down, farther down 5 years, and then Pelican roll, and then we kind of wanted to jump back. I just don't feel like the need to spend the money on this when all of our ponds are way below, what we are required. And we actually took samples when we're in the ponds committee. We have data because I have all those reports for 5 years, not only on the trunk line, but on every single pond. And every single one of those results are below the TSI and below the oxygen. So we actually, that data is, she's not providing it, but that data is available to us. So not only the trunk line, everything is fine for the last 5 years. All the additional ponds that go into the trunk line are also fine. So I was okay with going with this route because I thought it was a benefit. But then when Bob kind of mentioned like they were pulling back a Pelican and then looking at it that we don't have it, I just feel like, and it's not like we're even close. It's not like the threshold is 7 and we're a 6. I can see that. We're talking about a 6 and a 15. That's double.
Well,
That's.
that
Yes, Carol.
truthfully, sorry.
Go ahead, Carol.
No, I finish your line of thought and then,
So my line of thought is, while I think it's a great presentation, my mindset, I'm going with data. And I think we have a lot of projects going on, and it's not a time that I want to take it from this because we don't have the time. It's just, I cannot see spending the dollars on ponds, because we can spend dollars on ponds and other things. Like when I came in here, this pond right here, that's right here, it needs rocks. I see green areas all over, and it's dry season. So to me, it's been 4 months that's dry like that. I haven't said a word because I was waiting to see. So we can spend money where there's a deficit on our pond standards, but not where there's none. That's a true feel and fact on this. That's how I feel. Because, yes, Kara.
okay, I'd like to ask Bob a question. Why did Pelican start so many years ago with aeration?
Okay, their
what
list
was
of the
it?
benefits, that slide, that didn't even hit our horizon. We did it for two reasons. First, we had a number of fish kills. And when you had temperature variation, the fish died, the place stank.
Oh,
The second
okay.
reason was a cost benefit, because we know that after a period of time with I call it stagnant lake, but a non-circulating pond, you build up materials on the bottom that will cause, the word they use is die, that the pond will die. So when you put aeration in, that delays that for almost double. Instead of dredging every 20 years, 25 years, you do it every 50 years. So those were the two big drivers for why Pelican did it. And fish kills was number
How did
one.
Pelican do it? Did they do it all at once, or did they do a little every year, or what?
We allocated money for a number of years. And we were fortunate because when we started, we were only 40% developed, maybe not even 40%. So the residents paid for Old Pelican, everything off of Pelican Reserve Boulevard. Once Cypress Grove opened, this board modified the permit criteria, and then it fell onto the developer to do it. And again, the primary cost we found out initially was in getting power to every pond. That was negligible for Cypress Grove because it was all flat land. FPL put in plenty of power, and we had no problem with power sources for that 30 ponds.
So looking into the future then, I mean, it is only going to help Gateway if they aerate their ponds down the road.
I won't disagree with what Flavia said. I'm not sure that it justifies the expense.
Expense.
However,
But maybe if we did it a little at a time,
well, okay, going back to the title of this
I mean,
presentation.
because isn't that what Pelican did? They did,
No, we just, our criteria was a couple $100,000 a year.
okay,
Same thing we did with the downspout drainage. We didn't make one big master project. We just said, what's it going to cost? It's going to be $2 million. Well, we put $400,000 a year at it and did it in 5 years
okay.
because we didn't want to have assessments.
So I think looking down the road, it's only going to help your ponds to have them aerated. But I don't think we have to go into a big project all at one time and do it.
Here's another.
Why can't we just do a pond a year
Here's another thing that I brought this up, and then I'll go back to
or
that.
2 ponds, you know, or,
When we did the,
Depends how much.
and it baffled me this too. So when we did it, we're spending millions on doing the pond restoration, right? So in the beginning, I never understood why we didn't do core samples, and we did because we don't know how much muck is in there. So the muck, the debris they were talking about, it's less than an inch. We have debris on ponds by the pool that is a foot and a half deep. Aeration gonna touch it. So when
Well,
we
it will degrade it if it's there. It will help disperse it.
a foot of it.
Well, I don't know
That is
how
not
much
what
per
that
year.
is not what our vendor said. If you
Well,
read the
that's
specs
different than
for-
what we got.
because your ponds were newer and our ponds were, let's be call it, they were neglected. Nothing. There was hurricanes, there were branches, there were trees. So we have so much. So aeration ain't gonna do that. They came out with okay, let's have a bacteria, but let's throw this bacteria into the pond and we'll eat the organic matter. It was an inch. And then when we went out, we paid, I think, what, $2,000 to have a one of the two vendors that came in and they did the ponds.
Bathymetric
We
survey.
realized we had like this much and the bacteria wasn't going to cut it because that needed removal. So I don't even know a lot of the ponds are in compliance with the volume of water that we're supposed to be holding.
Yeah, we had one pond.
So we had it's a big can of worm because I'm thinking you're spending all this money on doing a pond, but then you miss to take one more step, which is calculate the volume that is in this particular pond. Because what we also found out is a lot of ponds had specifications to be 12 to 15 feet deep, and they were like 8 and 10.
Yeah.
So right there, so to me, and again, the board at that time decided, look, let's just go with this. So those are things that we are out of compliance. So those are the things that we should be looking at one off. Spend the money, go look at this pond. This pond's given an issue. Okay, we just realized this pond, it doesn't hold as much water as it's supposed to. And so that would help us with the flooding time, with the calculations, because all the calculations that's getting done by South Florida engineers in our district is on the volume of water that is on the development order, not the actual that's here. So those are actually problems that we have that we should be looking at. That's how.
We had one, I'll call it a problem pond, 33.
And after you're done, because poor Doug is like.
We had one problem, well, just to chime in on that. Pond 33, we could not keep that maintained in a normal function of what we were doing. So we had 3 different companies come in and do core sampling on that pond. And then we engaged, and I believe it was for 3 solid years, with Met Tower using biologics. And there was some outfit out of Cape Coral, but Met Tower was the
And that's
the
the
person
one,
that
Fred.
did it.
I think
Right.
Fred, the
I
name Fred.
don't remember the guy's
Because we
name.
use the same guy to Magnolia that you use
So
over there.
we did I won't call it intensive, but a close look at what we got for our biologicals, because they were twice what our regular chemicals are. At the end of the 3 years, we saw absolutely no difference. So, and then we were told that our microbes died, and we needed to restock it again at a significant cost. So we went away from that. But I do believe, because, this is one of the selling points of whatever the companies were that were leading us at the time, that there is merit to the fact that sooner or later, as you're saying, if there's some a foot tall, sooner or later, that pond's going to flip to the point where you got to dredge it to revive it. And now that's real money.
And that's what that board at that time wanted to put another Band-Aid, and it's like, oh, let's take the route of the aeration. Yes, aeration will help the quality that if you need it, but we have other issues that we should be taking a look at it, that they are
It
very
almost sounds like those other
costly.
issues
They
are
have nothing to
pond
do
by
with-
pond.
Exactly, they have nothing to do with the aeration. I just don't want us to sell the idea of putting aeration where currently factual, there is no need for it. It's 100% proactive. But we have other issues currently on the pond that need to be addressed. Some are not as costly, some are costly. And I would like the staff to focus on the needs as right now, reacting to what we have, than being proactive. That's just.
Well, the other aspect of this,
Okay, and I forgot about that, no.
No, you got one, go ahead.
I forgot.
Well, I mean, if I'm hearing everyone correctly, whether it's Pelican or
Doesn't matter
us
where it is,
or
right.
wherever, it seems like you're either addressing immediate need, a fish kill, maybe excess water quality or algae or whatever. Immediate need, or it's preventative. And preventative, what I'm hearing is like in 2 buckets. Preventative from water quality and preventative for major maintenance, dredging. Is that accurate? So you're either,
Not
water
anymore.
quality is not really one of the criteria that we use.
for area,
We
for
have nev-
aeration?
Yeah, we have
Well,
never,
but but from a pond justification, that is one of the, even though
Okay.
Pelican didn't do that. So,
And the dredging, it wouldn't apply to any of the ponds in Gateway. Given that our ponds are more than 20 years old, the majority of all the ponds, even the newer ones, have significant amount of muck. And if they don't, they were not, the ones that I recall, at least 4, they were not deep enough. And one issue of one particular pond was that the layer that was in, it was actually limestone, and the limestone was actually releasing all that, so aeration really did nothing for it.
Okay.
So it's a specific, because they're live
Right.
bodies, a specific pond needs a specific needs. It's
but
not,
my point is, like, if you're spending money, you're either doing it because there's an immediate need, or you're trying to prevent any degradation to quality, or you're looking to prevent major maintenance down the road. For dredging a pond, on average, what does that cost?
Big money.
that's big bucks.
big bucks.
Big
You got to be totally
Significant,
drained.
okay.
And then what you take out's got to be hauled away. It's hazardous.
And that was,
And then we've talked this before.
expensive.
So on average,
$1 million
how
bucks
many?
probably.
Okay. So how many years is it? Every 30 years on average?
That's probably a good number, 25,
Okay.
30.
So we're at a
20
point.
to 25.
We're at a point where we've probably gone beyond
Well beyond.
Way beyond. Okay. So I think I hear, and I was curious about the cost, because let's say if we're looking to offset aeration costs to dredging, okay, even as expensive as I believe aeration is.
I would go with the aeration.
Well, I know, but I'm saying like,
You're not gonna-
there's no point, I think what you're saying is there's no point of aerating ponds that have no current water quality issue. And what, at that point, it's preventative maintenance. And the preventative is really around major maintenance, which is the dredging. You know, aeration costs versus dredging, that's significant
Nickels and dollars.
difference. So we're not, if we don't aerate, we're minimally offsetting or dredging costs. But if we're, why put aeration in if it's not going to impact the long term? And we're already at that point. When we were doing the ponds, and this is my other question. So bank restoration versus, let's say, floor maintenance. So when we do bank restoration, we did not do any floor core samples or any bathymetric, right?
No.
That's what you were saying. We did.
We did a few, and that's when we
Yeah.
realized it's really bad. So let's not look at it. That's really what. That's really.
And it
what
would
was
have added another $1 million onto if we were doing dredging on top of. So, but in the future, even though we have done bank restoration on some of these ponds,
what it helps with.
dredging will or will not negatively impact the.
You won't have a choice when it comes to dredging. When the pond dies, you're
You
going to
have
dredge.
to do it, yeah.
That's not a choice.
So okay, so
You'll see that.
And
I'm going back-
one last question. And is it inevitable that ponds reach their shelf life if they're not, let's say, properly maintained? Like, so are
can't
we on a
answer
path
that.
that our ponds will
Yeah,
die at some
I
point?
can't answer that, but I was led to believe by all the educational forums we went to that, yes.
Yes, I
The answer to that is,
eventually, yeah.
eventually, it's going to die. Now, it's interesting because this leads me to what the purpose of today's meeting was. Because when I saw that we were here because of a trunk line, that spun my head 180 degrees. The last thing you want to do is the trunk line, because you've got water moving through there. What you're trying to preserve, protect, and defend are the various ponds that feed that
Satellite
trunk line.
ponds that
Yeah,
feed it.
that's where the problem occurs. I'm ambivalent whether we go one way or the other, but I think as a board, if we're going to do it, I would like to see us get away from the trunk line philosophy and just say, in general, if we're going to do it, then pick them based on geography and start at one point and go.
Like we
till you
did
get
with the
everything.
ponds, the next
Yeah,
severity or the highest potential for.
Well, I don't even know if they have potential, but just pick a spot and go, because here's where my puny little brain works. Half the year, the flowway flows. You don't need to do anything for that. It's flowing. That's why we didn't do the flowway in Pelican, because we were told we didn't need to. It's flowing. So if it's worth spending money, and I'm on Flavia's side there, I got a tough time justifying this, but if we're going to do it, I would like to get away from the trunk line philosophy and just say we're going to aerate and then pick a zone or whatever zone and work our way through the whole community in however number of years that takes.
So can I,
That
can-
makes more
I have a
sense to
question
me.
for you. Because I went back to your slide that says why aeration. Nowhere in there it says that aeration will help with muck, okay? And I don't think it does. So you put
Okay. All the
So
studies
I
we
get
got
to my
said it
point.
does.
Yeah, well, I need that from the vendor, because muck is like this very fine, almost like baby powder, underneath. So you're gonna put the aeration in there. I'm saying because it happened right now. You put the aeration in there, because Lee County did a beta test on our pond. The diffuser went straight down. It buried itself into 1 foot of muck, and then it doesn't work.
Absolutely, but over time, by circulating the
Yeah,
water,
but not
it clears a halo around that.
Yes.
So we did talk to our aeration vendor about it, and when we did the bathymetric survey in 2022, we also did core sampling like you were talking about, and we have all the data of how much muck was at the bottom
You did core sample in, I think, 4 ponds.
and
That's
all the
it.
trunk line. We have the
On
data.
on the trunk lines.
Yes.
But we're talking about the ponds, right? Because you didn't do it. I think you did, if not 2.
okay, let me back up because this is before Stephanie. all of this came about when we did that 2023 bond series. And that's how this original concept of bathymetrics and aeration all started. And so then this was, hey, let's just run the numbers. This is not a, we're not going to go run out there and do it. This is a run the numbers and let's see what's viable. From our perspective, from a staff perspective, it's, and I've talked to a couple of you individually, but it's a policy needs to be set, which in our permit criteria manual, any new development, they have to put in aeration 100 feet apart. And whatever the policy is, if the policy is aeration all over or partial or as determined by 5 years worth of data, et cetera, that policy needs to be set. And then the second part of that is the funding source. Now, based on the historical data, and this is the beauty of this exercise, right, is it gives staff the opportunity to go back. We got new eyes, I'm new. You guys have a lot of historical knowledge, many of you, is what's the end result here? What's the end game? Carol, kind of to your point is, is the cost benefit, what are we trying to accomplish here? Because at the end of this project, what do we want to say we accomplished? The pond bank project, the pond bank restoration project, that's easy.
Self-evident.
Self-evident. We're back in compliance, et cetera. We have long-term benefits. That's an easy given. This one, it's a little bit more difficult. But you as a board have to determine and decide what is the end game here? Like, do we want to spend $2 million and put, aeration in all of our ponds? That's the rough off the cuff number.
And that $2 million just for capital, just to put them in.
Yes.
Plus you have the cost
O&M,
of
operating
O&M
maintenance.
yeah.
So this
is very expensive.
This sample is just to show you what the bigger term cost could be. I know, Ed, you and I have talked about cutting it, you can calculate it in different ways, either surface acres or, rough estimate on a per pond basis. But no matter how you cut this is millions of dollars. And Flavia, to your point, do we want to spend $2 million on this, or is there more pertinent things that we would rather spend that money, not necessarily to get into compliance, but to ensure compliance?
Priority. There are
Can I ask a
different
question?
priorities.
Is there another alternative to dredging? Is there a long-term, let's say, I was thinking aeration, what you're doing is, and within the area, you're increasing flow and that stuff goes somewhere and gets whatever. Is there another?
There wasn't when we looked.
There's not an option for long-term.
No.
I'm not of the opinion that we have got enough data to show or any need or necessity for dredging.
We
At this point,
We don't
nothing.
have a dead
We
pond.
don't have
Nothing.
we don't have the data right now, correct?
We don't have that data.
It's not a problem until it's a problem for
Till
us.
pond dies, well, no.
No,
What we do
listen
have,
to what Ed is saying. We don't have the data. He's not saying we don't have the problem, guys.
what
We
we
don't
have is,
have the data because we were afraid, let's just be honest, we were afraid to go out there and get the data because we knew once we got the data, then we were held responsible, making sure that it's in compliance. That's what we did. We said, let's not look for the data because we were so afraid of what the data is going to show.
I'd like to see, before we go any further, because I disagree with what everybody's saying. First of all, I think the data we've got is very, very questionable because the fact is crab samples. You go out there in our ponds and go to Basin 5. Look at Basin 5. And why is Basin 5 the worst? Because Basin 5 has no aeration upstream, downstream, instream, or outstream. Nothing. As you go further north and you pick up the communities that have the aeration, what happens? Your water quality, your DOs go up. That should tell you right off the bat that our problem is not at the north end and the west end of the system. It's from basically Weir 4 back south. That's where I would like to see us go, is attacking basin, the flowway, like you've got starting at, can you bring up the picture?
Where's Basin 4?
Yeah,
Basin 4 is the Weir over at the end of the golf course.
which is always higher because the
That's at the
locals,
end of
they
pond
have no
number,
restrictions, so they release.
about
fertilizers.
pond, Doug, about pond 127. Start there. That's right above where Stony Brook comes in and then goes south. But before doing that, since we bring up the question and we don't know the answer, let's do a detailed bathymetric study like we did in 2015 that shows this information, and it does show a problem with sedimentation on the bottom of these ponds. It does show a problem. But where we're talking about depth, they're talking an average depth of 10 inches. And only 2 of those are in the flowway, but they are 10 inches. But there's more than that on that sediment. It's what's in that sediment.
Yeah, that's
For
a real
years,
danger.
we dumped copper sulfate in here like it was going crazy. They did the same thing in Naples, and they ran into a lot of problems when they came in to do pond aeration. And they went and checked sediment and find out it had real high levels of copper sulfate. We need to know all that before, one, we go in and put aeration in and stir that up, because like what Flavia was saying, when you take and go in there and you set those deals, the heads apart at about 100 feet, you turn that power on and you're in the flowway, what you're going to get is you're going to get that stuff stirred, and it's going to go downstream. It's going to be carried downstream. Now, it may stop the first time it loses velocity and drops back down and finds another place to park. But the issue is you are going to stir it up. I think our issue is what are we stirring up? Are there any heavy metals that's in that material, that's in what I call Basin 127 or Lake Pond 127 South, which is where I think we need the predominance of the work. Probably looks like to me, just eyeballing it, you're about half of the size of what's purported right now.
And is there a fear too, let's say those ponds around the golf course, because there probably is more fertilizer and those type of things, a part of me says it's might be better for that to settle within those ponds than to stir them up and then push them downstream where it could have maybe more negative impact down.
Well, your
down the
problem
road.
is one day, someday, they like area lagoons and wastewater treatment plants, someday they will turn over. And when they turn over, it's going to be bad. You don't want to have that happen.
Yeah.
You don't want to have that happen. But you do bring up a point. Look at that, everything from Pond 127 South, and what do you see on the west side of it almost the whole way?
Blue.
Golf course. Golf course, almost the whole way. Our problem is that on the non-golf course side, times of the year that this would solve, aeration would solve some of the algae issues we've got. There's where aeration is going to come in addition to being water quality for the fish and that type of thing. It's going to help on that algae problem we have. And we do have an algae problem at times of the year south of the Weir 4 in both Basin 4 and Basin 5. We have it. And it's a pain in the neck. It's ugly. It stinks. So this would solve that problem. But I don't know that we're ready yet to go and just jump in and say, let's do from Basin or Pond 127 South until we know exactly what the bathymetrics show on Pond 27, 24, 16, 14, 9, and 2. What do those 6 ponds show? Those are not only flowway, those are ponds. They're ponds. They're just part of the system. It just so happens it connects A and B.
Well,
But it benefits a lot of people. But there's where I would attack and go with directing our attention to try to solve the south end of our basin before we do anything else.
So I want to look at this from a different direction, and more from a funding and financial perspective. So we know we have large projects currently on the books, meter project, irrigation, just to name a few that have pretty significant price tags. If I'm looking just on public works and I think about just pond funding in general, what are the areas that we have identified as areas requiring funding for ponds? And that's maintenance, ongoing maintenance, continued pond bank restoration, and then aeration, and I'm sure some other things. When I look at those 3, what are the most critical as far as severity that we know of today? And then if I take those pond bank and I deck them up against full public works items, where would they stack rank as far as need and severity? Now, the pond aeration and dredging, we don't know the severity because we don't have the data, or at least we don't have significant enough data. My question is, at this point, do we want to open the door to take on another project? Or is it something that we identify as a potential need, we continue with our existing strategy, we focus our attention to maintenance and our continued pond bank restoration, but knowing that we've got significant other projects that they're gonna cost, And maybe we just don't have the tolerance to even look, to turn a rock over to see what might be underneath it. Maybe we postpone that for a year or two. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, because I think our philosophy as a board has been, we don't kick the can. We try to address it, even if what we address causes, impact to funding and must do it. 'Cause I don't,
But why don't we look at doing one pond with aeration and see if the numbers improve or not?
well, I'm not saying we don't do aeration. That's a difference. So let me clarify.
But they will.
Well, let me clarify. I'm not saying we don't move forward with an ongoing aeration project. What I'm saying is we limit that, and we don't necessarily go in and do some of the extensive sampling, because once we do that, we're going to have data, and it may force our hand to do something. So we're almost operating in ignorance is bliss right now, and I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. I'm just calling it out.
Right.
And that's exactly what I say, that if we're going to make decisions, that's what we're going to do. Before we do that, I think a vendor is going to sell us their product, right? I want to ask the vendor, what are the consequences of us going out there, not knowing what type of materials are under those ponds, not knowing how big is the monster that's going to be if we go ahead and do that without knowing? Because if we go ahead and do it, like Ed's point, we don't know what's out there. Is it going to make it worse? And really bring our hands to the fire in compliance with the state and say, now you have to do it, and you don't get to play 2 years to fix it. You're going to fix it now, because this is a bigger issue, right? So I guess that's a question that I like. What if we have something bad out there, just like happened in Naples?
The only thing that you can do is literally do your bathometrics and your core
Yeah.
samples.
That's what,
And-
that's what I
that-
think needs to be done.
So here's to
But
kind
if you
of,
find something, is there any, what is the, if we find something and we have to fix
Fix
it,
it, yes. Yes.
what is
Because
the
we're gonna
time
be-
frame on
because
that? Like, same thing with the
I don't
ponds. I
know.
mean, that's the reason why we're doing a lot of those ponds, is
None,
we gotta
none,
bring them up
none
to
of our
code.
permit criteria have time limits. If Tony's our attorney, if I'm mistaken, I don't think nothing has, you must do by, unless they feel like we're playing them, and then they come and tell us, you're not compliant, you have by this day to fix it, right?
I mean, agencies.
The agencies, yeah, so that's usually how it goes. We don't have a time, like, you must fix this in 30 days.
If we would determine that we're going to put in aeration, and we determine that we're not going to make it a master project, but a multi-year project, and that multi-year means that we're going to do 6 ponds a year, whatever. You do the mathematics, you do the core samples, you get it done. You can't go back to see whether you're making progress or not for probably a minimum of 5 years. It's
You
not
won't
an
see-
overnight
yeah, you're
process.
not
So it's
gonna
a
see
slow
anything.
burn
You
on
won't,
Yeah,
that's
very.
exactly right. So you won't see the benefit or, the positive gain to it. However, you know intuitively that you're better off with it than you are without
Yeah.
it.
And I have one more question for you guys. I would imagine if we're gonna sample, we'd have to sample every one of our ponds to create a baseline.
No.
No?
What?
You don't
No.
have to?
Wait, for what we said, we talking about
If
water
we do, if
sample?
we have to do bathymetrics for every pond in order to create a baseline.
You're not only going to want to do bathymetrics, you're going to want to take a
Course.
sample.
Yeah,
in
of course,
every pond.
whatever it is, whatever the
Both
package
they're
is.
hand in glove, they're the same.
Yeah.
But my question is, do you only do a selected amount, or do you have to do every
Well, it
pond?
depends on how much money you're going to spend a year.
Well, that's my point. It's like, how
You need
much
to
is
do
it?
every pond, because if you're going to go in there and
Eventually.
put air, you want to know what you're stirring up.
But it could be over
Well,
10
you have
years.
to even go back to the ones we've already done as
Yeah,
well, right?
For me,
Like, we
I
need to,
think
we
I
need to
would
know
go-
what the health of every pond is, do we not? Not just water
Well,
quality, but,
yes, but to me, I never understood the reasoning why we didn't do that prior to starting the lake embankment project. Why didn't we just did that as one more line item? Because if you already have mobilization over there, you already have the vendor out there, doesn't mean that that vendor can do that.
right, it would have
Because-
been nice, but we didn't
but-
do it. But
We
still,
did it based on
we're still
cost.
on the project, so we still have ponds that need to be done.
We'll make those
So
in.
make those.
We didn't do it based
Yeah.
on cost and the age of the ponds.
So
Those were-
my point is, is it a best practice, if we're gonna do this, we would get core samples bathymetric for all the ponds, and if so, how much would each pond cost? So if it's a big
Like
number, we can't do it
That's a
all
big
once, we
number.
have to do it.
I don't think that's necessary. I'd
Yeah.
start,
I don't either.
I'd
That's a big
start
number.
with ponds that you've got
18
listed
site
right
18
here on the
piece.
list at 96 and go north, or 127 go south.
The ones that we don't have aeration on
The
today.
ones we don't have aeration on, the ones that are on the flowway. I talked to Ernesto de la Vega up at Pond Watch. He's very knowledgeable of Gateway, has been here for years with us. He says he thinks exactly what you're doing is the way to do it, exactly the way to do it. The issue is it always comes down like anything else, what's it going to cost? Ours is a little bit more than that. I'm not so worried about the cost because these numbers look very good. What I'm worried about is that we don't know, and that is what's these sample results and what's this pond depth versus what they were designed for. Because we might find that this could lead to something further and much more extensive than just adding air. And the last thing we
You
want
have
to
no
do is
way of
go in there.
knowing whether they were built properly or not.
Well, if you're going to do work, design it the right way, and the right way is to collect the data. We don't have the data. I'd start on those 6 or 8 ponds, get the bathymetrics on them,
We
get
have
that
that.
information.
We did bathymetrics in 2022. That's what, and core sampling.
On all
So
the ones up the flowway.
on this trunk line project, that was done back in 2022. And so you have the
I'd
projection.
say I haven't seen that. All I've seen is the 2015 report.
Yeah, that's the only one I have.
But we
That's
also
from
need
the
them
same guy,
outside the
Fred.
trunk line.
I saw your
Is
document.
this the one that was done by, what was his name? Keys?
Fred, I think his name was Fred.
I
Keys?
thought it was Keys.
Jeff Key, that's
Jeff
it.
Keys.
Jeff
That
Keys.
hell-
He's
yes.
the one that helped
Yes, I know
us.
it.
But
Jeff
that
Keys
was
is-
that was
But-
a
but
very
I haven't seen that. But
less
does
than
it-
robust.
But does it
Because
show
Analysis.
sample
We had
data?
a new
scroll up.
Does it have data of what the metals and things
He-
are?
he-
Because if
it was very
if
limited in
Zosin's
what he
doing it
gave you
twice,
direction.
if we've got it, I've not seen it.
So that was provided to us back in 2022, which is, again, what established and started this conversation. We have the core sampling, we have the data, we can provide that. Again,
see
we're
that.
just looking right now for the policy, and if the policy is the intent is to do all ponds throughout Gateway, like Pelican has done,
I don't think
then,
you can do that right now, Chelsea. I don't think we have enough data to make that call.
okay.
Well, maybe that might be the plan, but it may be a 10-year plan.
absolutely.
Exactly.
And can you
So-
tell me what, for 2026, what do we have budgeted for aeration and bathymetrics?
So we had funding in the
bond,
bond
it's in the
project.
bond.
We don't have any more funding in the bond project because we chose to use that for the golf course side of Lake 109. And then we had some bids that came in high for the basin cleaning. So there is no bond funding right now.
so no bond funding
No
and
funding. No O&M. All we do is O&M on the.
So we have, today,
$0
we have $0 for
For
aeration and
future
bathymetrics.
projects.
Yeah,
you're talking-
we're gonna have to subsidize from somewhere else.
Yeah, if you're talking about the money, and they're guessing somewhere a little bit south of $600,000 for the whole flowway. And we're talking about cutting that in half, ballpark. Then you're looking somewhere in the neighborhood of about $300,000.
Said you're still focused
price
on the
is
flowway.
Do what?
You're still focused on that flowway.
Yeah.
That's a waste of money.
Yeah, no, it's
Let's
not
focus
according
on
to,
it.
not
Well,
according to an expert.
You got your opinion, I got mine.
No,
But
it's
let's
not
do
my
the
opinion,
bond.
Bob. It's an expert's opinion.
Well,
So-
where do you
Well,
think I
we-
got mine from, Ed? I didn't pull it out of my ass.
But anyway.
But that's why we didn't do the flowway, because you've got it's a river. It's a
that's our
stream.
deal. That's
Why
our
are you
deal
putting
to
money
talk
in
about.
that?
What I want to see right now is I'd like to see those 2022, that data.
Me too.
I've never
We
seen
I
can
like-
it.
we
I
can
have
share that
never seen it.
report.
Yeah.
They did not find anything material that would concern us at this point in time.
So there's no metals, nothing in that water, in that sediment at all.
I would have to double check that.
I want to make sure.
Well, you ought to
That
compare
right
that to
there-
some of
I can
the
speak on muck. 'Cause I
aerated
know it was brought up.
Stony Brook ponds.
That's what I'm talking about. When you take and put a.
They've got them? What do they look like? These
When
don't?
you put a
What do they look
sludge
like?
judge in the deal and pull up the sample, that's what we're testing. That little 12-inch or 8-inch or whatever thickness it is.
So we
That
will.
tells us
If
what
I'm
we've done.
walking away from today's conversation, what I think I've picked up on is we do have 2 priorities, aeration and data, bathymetrics and core. I don't know if we have landed exactly on where we need to focus,
What are resources?
put those, but we still feel that aeration is important. But we can't look short-term or long-term without data.
And I do agree with Bob, that's a good point. I would like to see a pond, so a pond that is the same age, because that's the
That's why
only-
we think Stony Brook.
So I want to do a pond, one of our ponds that's 15 years old, and a pond that's 15 years old with aeration over there. Do they look any different?
Yeah.
That's what
Is
I
there a
want.
difference?
I'm not talking about the water quality, because I'm not concerned, because we don't have that issue, but the sediment and everything else. I just,
If I could
So
just
let's
add a
get
couple.
the data that we have available, distribute that to the board, make sure that we all have access to
Keep in
that.
mind, all the ponds that we're talking about right here are 35 years or older.
Every pond in the community is
35 or
35
older.
You have any ponds that
It's
aren't?
a big difference. Big
So
I think the newest pond we have is 2006 and 2008. Magnolia and
Harborwood
then
might
over
be
here.
the newest.
Yeah,
Harborwood is.
yeah.
So to
But
answer,
Arborwood should have aeration,
yes, they do.
because
They
that's
do.
in the permit
They do.
criteria.
It does.
So Flavia, to answer your question earlier, we all kind of danced around the whole elephant in the room of we don't know what we don't know. Well, the regulatory agencies don't know what they don't know either, right? So that's kind of the point is if we start to produce this information and we have this, it's a public record, everything we do here is a public record. Not ignorance is bliss, but it's really, it's
Transparency.
it's transparency too. So we have the data on these trunkline ponds. We have we got actual costs. So what is presented in this presentation is the actual cost. If you chose to say, make this project come to fruition. So generally, the whole point of this exercise was to paint a picture of we have some information, albeit it's not complete. If we have to do a little bit further, we can. If we want to do a pilot on one that's had aeration to not, but ultimately you have some data in order to make decisions on this. If you want to kick this to year 10 instead of year 1 or year 5 or 15. Ultimately, the policy has to be set of all or nothing, partial, some, status quo. The funding source needs to be determined. If it's the Pelican way of we're going to just do a little bit each year and slowly fund it, or we're going to rip the Band-Aid off and do it all at one time.
So many Band-Aids getting ripped off here. I can't handle it anymore.
Yeah, I think right now, let's look at this 2022
I'm bleeding.
data and make a determination. One, do we need more data? If we find that the data that we've got is accurate, then I see no reason then we
Okay,
can't make the
so-
decision to go ahead of how we're going to proceed, whether it's phased, how it's phased, the whole 9 yards.
What we will do is the company that did this report back in 2022, we'll see if they can come in.
Who is that?
I don't remember. Superior Waterways. We will
So it's
see.
not the same as the one that was done in 15 then?
No.
But Superior did Pelican also.
I've never seen it. Okay.
So-
Superior was our source.
We will bring that back in front of you. We will see if we can get the vendor to come and assist in presenting the data that was done back in 2022. And then we can go from there if you want to action that or if we want to push that towards the end of our plan.
I really like that, but I'd like you to pick one of the Stony Brook ponds, whichever one, and use that as a baseline of a comparable pond that did have aeration.
Okay, that would
I agree
require,
with that.
that would require getting sediment
Yep.
core
Yep.
core samples and bathymetrics.
Can I just-
So do you want to pick the Stony Brook pond or do you want our vendor to pick the Stony Brook pond? And then tell us the one
Let
in
staff work
Pelican.
with them.
Let's, yeah, whatever.
And then we'll work with the Pelican vendor to do the same and pick one in
That's the
there.
same
If
vendor.
anything, not all
Superior's
the,
who
not
we
all
did.
the ponds on Stony Brook, are all the ponds in Stony Brook done with the Lake Embankment project?
Not all of them.
I would suggest pick one that has not been touched by the Lake
Right.
Embankment project, because the data will
That'll-
be skewed.
yep.
So if you're gonna do it Stony Brook, I'm fine with staff and the vendor picking, just don't pick the ones that we just touched it, it's not stable. Second question, regarding the aerator, right? Did you guys look into the nano bubblers aerator, or we're just talking about the plain regular aerator? Do you know anything about it?
No.
Okay, so I would like for you to also partner with Ernesto with Lee County Mosquito Control, because there is a different type of bubbler, an aerator. It's called nanotechnology. We did have that for about 1.5 years in Magnolia, and I can tell you that there were times during the year that 35 to 40% of my pond, it was covered in filamentous algae. We're not talking about 5%, we're talking about 30 to 40, right? And we put in that bubbler there for a year. So we didn't add any heads or any additional diffusers. We killed those. We make them stop working. We just had one for the entire pond because we wanted to get the data. So there may be a little bit of a higher cost for the nano bubblers, but then you may not need as many diffusers for it.
So there could be
Okay,
some cost
so
savings.
if you can reach out to him, he can probably provide you the data for pond 83. And then he can just tell you, what else. And then I think the last time I did tell him if he wanted to do some more beta testing, just tell us what pond he wants to put this stuff. We're all in, and I think
Well-
we're still into that note.
One of the lessons learned that we discovered into the project was we relied on the vendor to tell us what we needed horsepower. We had quarter horse, we had a third horse, we had half horse, we had 3/4 horse. The end of the day, as we went to a half all the way everywhere, Okay, so you get a higher turnover rate on some, but you'll never be beyond it, never be below it. And it made the maintenance so much easier.
And I think that's what I wanted to take a look at that. So
Standardize
I
that.
think we're like in the right track,
Standardize
but
that.
let's figure out what's the best
So if
decision.
I can just recap, so we're clear moving forward. We're going to pick 2 ponds comparable, not done with Lake Bank, one in Pelican, one in Stony Brook. We're going to get a bathymetric and a sediment sample of both of those done. We will get with the vendor who did the report back in 2022. We will get you the report as soon as we can,
will see
so
that
you can
report
read that. But
quickly.
we will work on getting a presentation in front of you with that report, and hopefully the findings of the 2 new ponds.
The one I missed was, and I have no problem with doing a Pelican pond. I didn't hear that, though. I was interested in the Stony Brook pond because they were all built at the same time. I don't care, you take a Pelican too, but I'll be far more interested in the Stony Brook versus the non-touched pond over here. More data is better, so
We
I'm
can
okay
also
with it.
partner with the ponds committee and have them provide, I mean, they're gonna be a few years old, but you're not gonna get a lot of muck in a year or two, right? So they can probably provide the data they already have.
Use Old Pelican, that's the oldest.
Exactly,
Yep,
so.
and then we'll
do
look
that.
at the nano
Nano
bubblers.
bubblers.
All right.
All right, so.
Stephanie, are you good?
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you for the work, we appreciate it.
Ernesto, he's retiring in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Yes,
He is.
Who is?
Ernesto
Oh, De La Vega, yeah.
de la Vega, yeah.
Great.
All right.
Pond watch.
So let's go ahead, and I know let's go ahead and take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll start the other meeting, okay?